If you're looking for a deep dive that truly challenges your assumptions about reality, you have definitely come to the right place.
I think that's an understatement.
Today, we are opening a stack of sources that don't just sit on the border between science and spirituality. No, they demand those two worlds completely merge.
It's a fascinating body of work. And we're not dealing with, abstract philosophy here. This is a comprehensive, interconnected worldview.
Right.
It uses hard science, specific numerical data, cosmology, all to argue for intelligent design. And then it just pivots that entire argument into this radical blueprint for human, social, and spiritual life.
So our mission today is to navigate this framework. It posits a meticulous design for the entire cosmos, redefines the purpose of human existence, and then lays out this incredibly demanding path for achieving transformation.
It really is.
You are about to hear why the space between your ears and the space between the Earth and the Sun might just be governed by the exact same rules.
So let's start with that fundamental premise, which is precision. How do these sources use facts, observable facts, to argue against the idea that the universe is just a happy accident?
They start with sheer geometry and physics, specifically our position in the solar system. The sources cite the distance between the Earth and the Sun as 147 million kilometers. So what's the takeaway there?
Well, the takeaway is that this number is not arbitrary. Not at all. They use a very relatable analogy.
Okay.
Imagine standing near a fire. If you're too far, you freeze. Too close, and you incinerate.
Of course.
The sources present that 147 million kilometers as the mathematically precise, predetermined distance needed for life to receive moderate heat.
So it's deliberate.
They argue it's the first major proof of intent, not random chance.
It's the Goldilocks principle, but, on a cosmological level.
Yeah.
And they apply that same intentional design to how the Earth moves every single day. They focus on a rotational speed.
Correct. The sources explain that the speed of rotation is perfectly calculated, it has to be, to ensure uniform heat distribution across the surface.
What would happen if it were different?
If we rotated too slowly, one side would bake while the other froze solid, too fast, and would likely have violent atmospheric and geophysical changes. Life would be impossible.
The analogy they use here is quite vivid. They describe Earth as being like a person sitting in an automatically rotating chair next to a heat source.
Right.
The speed is optimal, not random. It suggests the universe is built for comfort and stability.
And this sense of optimal engineering carries right over into the biological realm. The ultimate example of non-coincidence, they argue, is found in the complexity of the human body.
Let's unpack the human eye for a moment. They compare it directly to our own technology and conclude our tech is clumsy by comparison.
Oh, definitely. They point out the failings of, say, an early human camera. It had a fixed lens, right? You had to mechanically adjust it based on the object's distance.
Which would be terrible for our eyes.
Incredibly awkward and harmful. Imagine your eyes constantly shifting back and forth mechanically. But the human eye, it uses a transparent elastic lens that automatically adjusts focus.
An organic autofocus system.
Exactly. It prevents that constant jerky movement. This mechanism is presented as proof of a design efficiency that even our most advanced optics still struggle to match.
And speaking of internal mechanics, let's zoom in on a structural necessity.
Yeah.
The vestibular system. The part of the inner ear that's responsible for balance.
Mm-hmm.
The sources really emphasize that this system is composed of exactly 3 mutually perpendicular semicircular canals.
And the question is, why 3?
Right.
Because we live in 3-dimensional space. Forward and back, left and right, up and down. To monitor all possible movements and maintain our equilibrium, you need exactly 3 perpendicular sensors.
Logic is just definitive.
It is. Any fewer would be incomplete, any more would be redundant. They see it as elegant, targeted engineering for a 3D environment, not chance.
That structural precision, according to the sources, also governs our behavioral responses. This brings in the concept of the conditioned reflex.
Ah, yes. Pavlov's dog.
Well, before that, they use a slightly more humorous anecdote about instinctively flinching when a classmate pretends to spit at you, even from behind a closed window.
That involuntary response is the crucial piece. It demonstrates that our most basic reactions are pre-programmed protective mechanisms.
Right.
Whether it's salivation to prepare for digestion or flinching to protect the eyes, these are automated processes necessary for survival. The conclusion of this entire section is that from the cosmos to the inner ear, everything has been intentionally fine-tuned.
But that sets up a huge intellectual problem for the sources, doesn't
Yeah.
it? If everything is this precise, this designed, why are there still mysteries and anomalies that defy our material laws?
Exactly, and this is where we move into the second section, where these sources interpret historical and scientific enigmas as intentional signs from the designer.
This is where the narrative shifts from observation to metaphysical interpretation.
And they start with the ultimate symbol of mathematical impossibility, the Great Pyramid of Khufu.
Beyond the astounding historical facts, built around 2700 BCE, 146.5 meters high, 2.3 million stones averaging 2.5 tons each, the sources highlight a massive logistical nightmare.
Illumination.
Illumination.
Yeah.
How did they see?
Right. Archaeologists performed advanced chemical analyses on 4,600-year-old dust inside those chambers. They found absolutely no trace of smoke, soot, or ash from torches or any kind of fire.
So how is the construction lit in the deep interior?
The sources suggest the method itself was non-conventional,
Yeah.
maybe even divine.
But the real undeniable proof of, let's say, non-human design, they claim it, lies in the numbers, the math embedded in the structure.
Well, this part it's just mind-blowing.
So walk us through the most staggering relationships they highlight.
Okay, first, the pyramid's total weight multiplied by 10 to the power of 15 approximates the weight of the Earth.
The entire planet.
Wow. Second, the pyramid's height. If you multiply that by 1 billion, you get a number that approximates the Earth's distance to the sun.
That's impossible.
And maybe the most cited relationship. The ratio of the base perimeter divided by twice the height equals pi.
To several decimal places.
To several decimal places, yes.
That's a huge implication. For builders in 2700 BCE to not only know the value of pi, but to embed it in a structure that also maps the Earth's weight and its orbit, that just challenges all conventional history.
It implies a kind of cartographic and astronomical knowledge that, well, it shouldn't have existed for another 4 millennia.
And it doesn't stop there. There are geographical claims, too.
Exactly. The sources claim the meridian line passing through the pyramid divides the Earth's land and sea into 2 equal halves.
And what about the base?
The base is said to be situated precisely at the center of gravity of the Earth's continents.
So if the pyramids are these giant mathematical markers, what are they markers for? Do the sources lean toward a spiritual explanation or something else entirely?
And this is where we see that blend of the serious and the, let's say, radical.
Okay.
Alongside all this incredible math, one source cites a theory from a chemical professor. It suggests the pyramids are actually prehistoric alien nuclear waste storage facilities.
Excuse me. Alien nuclear waste.
That's the theory. It links low-level radiation found inside to high cancer rates in some past tourists.
That's a remarkable leap from geometry and cartography. Do the sources give this specific theory the same weight as, say, the pi relationship?
They include it as part of the overall basket of unsolved anomalies. It's presented as evidence that the pyramid's true function is fundamentally beyond our understanding, whether that's spiritual or technological.
So the key is just that the design intentionality is what matters.
That's paramount.
Okay, moving from stone structures to natural phenomena, the sources touch on classic mysteries like the Bermuda Triangle. They reference the loss of ships like the Rosalie in 1840, the Mary Celeste in 1872, Flight 19 in 1945.
Right, all presented as events that defy a simple material explanation.
But the deepest insight in this section, for me, is the reinterpretation of the simple mirage.
Yes. They don't see it as just light refraction caused by heating air layers.
What is it then?
It's defined as a space-time distortion, one that is actively orchestrated by the divine consciousness.
And this distortion has a mission,
Yeah.
a purpose.
Yes. The mirage is meant to signal to us that the sky is, and I'm quoting, another space-time, another world. It's a fleeting, beautiful glimpse of a higher reality, the land of ultimate bliss.
A kind of spiritual teaser trailer.
Exactly. These anomalies are proofs of a higher reality, not errors in ours.
That transition from physics puzzles to future visions brings us perfectly to Section 3, the metaphysical structure of consciousness. Because if our world is engineered with such precision, yet everything we see is just a beautiful mirage, then who are we, really? And what is reality?
The sources immediately dismantle our conventional notion of the self. They ask you, the listener, to strip away every physical and material attachment. Your home, your clothes, even your organs, your blood.
If the physical shell is removed, what's left?
What remains is the I. And that I is defined as pure consciousness, the soul.
The soul.
Precisely. This consciousness is the eternal essence, what the sources refer to as the Tathagata, the unchanging true self. The body is just a temporary vessel. Their phrase is a ferry across the river.
Which immediately leads to a sharp critique of conventional science. According to these sources, it's fundamentally limited because it ignores this true self.
Science is criticized for being purely materialistic. It can only explain matter.
Right.
And the sources argue that this leaves out half the equation, the entire antimatter component of the universe, which includes consciousness itself. To them, current science is willfully blind.
And what's the scale of the reality that science is supposedly missing?
It's staggering. They assert the cosmos operates on a scale of 36 dimensions and 20 parallel worlds.
Wow. And the land of ultimate bliss, the ultimate goal. Where is that?
It's located near the 0 point of the XYZ axis, suggesting it's the center of all these worlds. But paradoxically, our current universe is considered part of this ultimate bliss realm, and that's where the true illusion comes in.
So we went from precisely measuring the Earth's orbit to being told that the orbit itself is fundamentally unreal. What does virtual image mean when they say everything, flora, fauna, rivers, the cosmos, human life, is merely a virtual image?
It means that while the underlying design is perfect and real, our experience of it in this dimension is filtered. It's temporary, it's illusory. We're living in a highly detailed simulation where the rules of physics, like the pyramid's geometry, are perfectly coded. But the experience of suffering, change, and death is based on viewing the simulation as absolute reality.
That distinction, perfect design, flawed perception, is vital, because in this schema, humanity itself is viewed, well, quite poorly.
Oh yes, humanity sits in the human realm, the middle world. It's positioned just above the suffering of the animal and plant realms. Hell, the frozen and fire layers.
And humans are described as foolish.
Foolish because they're ignorant of their origin and their destination, and also actively evil. The evidence cited is mutual slaughter, pervasive pollution of their shared home, and a colossal arrogance toward the divine truth.
So if we're trapped in a virtual reality filled with suffering, constantly on the verge of slipping down into lower realms, the only option is ascension.
That's it.
Which takes us to the truly radical conclusions of Section 4, the path to celestial living. And the first requirement is spiritual accounting.
Yeah.
Debt repayment.
It is the absolute necessity of renunciation and the repayment of all karmic debts, or Lifechanyuan. The only way to escape the cycle of reincarnation back into this suffering virtual world is to settle all accounts.
And this involves performing traditional duties.
It does. Filial piety, raising children, contributing positively to society.
But here's the major caveat, which creates a massive hurdle for anyone trying to live a normal human life.
Yeah.
They warn against accepting benefits.
Precisely. They strongly discourage accepting any benefits from ordinary people. The text explicitly states secular benefit is never a good thing because it creates a spiritual debt that acts like a lead weight, actively obstructing the path to heaven. The goal is to maximize positive karma while achieving a state of complete, independent, non-obligation.
Wait, I need to pause on this. If the soul is the eternal Tathagata using the body as a ferry, and everything is a virtual image, why does a material debt incurred in the simulation, say, a secular favor, still create spiritual obstruction for the eternal self?
That is the central operational paradox. The sources imply that while the setting is virtual, the consequences are very, very real. The debt isn't financial. It's a spiritual obligation that stains the consciousness.
So the ferry has to be clean.
If the body is a ferry, any debt on that ferry must be repaid before the soul can safely disembark and ascend.
Understood. Now, the sources then use this foundation of non-attachment to just tear down the 4 institutional pillars of traditional human society. They call them the 4 pillars of pain.
This is their most radical sociological critique. They identify the family, religion, political parties, and the state as the total root of human suffering. They're called fences and obstacles to a beautiful life. Because these structures are defined by ownership and attachment, which are the antitheses of spiritual freedom.
Let's focus on the family unit for a second, which they claim is a trap set by the devil. Why is this sacred social institution labeled so harshly?
Because it's built on what they see as a fatal flaw, possession. People cling to possessing one another, possessing a spouse, possessing children, possessing property.
And that clinging.
That clinging creates jealousy, fear, and endless emotional suffering when those possessions inevitably change or leave. Since the goal is the pure, independent self, Any system built on attachment has to be dissolved.
This naturally flows into the doctrine they advocate for the new era, which is unconventional, non-exclusive love and relationships, a complete dismantling of modern marriage.
Absolutely. The ideal is radical openness and emotional liberation from ownership. The sources propose a philosophy centered on complete acceptance. The quote is, "I love you. I don't care how many people you love. As long as you still love me, I am satisfied."
So, that freedom from jealousy and possessiveness is the key to spiritual purity.
It's a requirement.
Emotional liberation is a requirement for spiritual ascension, not just a casual soulful choice. They define true sexual love not as lust, but as a dance of the soul.
The perfect harmonious unity of spirit and flesh. It's the highest expression of non-possessive connection. The new era encourages a rich emotional and sexual life, but only when it is free of the constraints of ownership and obligation.
The very constraints imposed by the family trap and the state.
Exactly.
Finally, what is the specific path to ascension? They emphasize prioritizing something called the divine way.
Right, Shengdi Jido. And this divine way requires a triple renunciation. You must abandon the path of men, the path of gods who are numerous and imperfect, and they include Satan, and the path of Buddhas who, according to these sources, teach you to abandon the raft after you've crossed the river, which they say is too slow. The divine way is direct and absolute.
And what are the specific virtues required for this highest path?
They are demanding, and they are focused on continuous spiritual labor. Humility, which is defined as feeling unimportant, gratitude, trustworthiness, diligence.
In prioritizing labor.
Yes, and perhaps most importantly, prioritizing conscious creation or labor over enjoyment and laziness. Only through constant, dedicated effort and detachment can the soul achieve true independence.
So we started with cosmic measurements, and we ended with a manual for radical social and spiritual transformation that demands you discard nearly every institution we hold dear. That is the true depth of these sources.
Indeed. They present this meticulous argument for intelligent design, and then they use that very precision to justify these radical sociological conclusions. They're asserting that the suffering humanity perceives is entirely self-imposed spiritual ignorance. The system itself is flawless. It's the residents who are flawed.
So what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener? What is the promise of this demanding path?
The promise is happiness, but it's happiness redefined. It's not material gain or fulfillment. It's a state of ultimate independence and unpossession, iwusuyu. True ascension requires discarding the very structures, family, state, attachment, that humanity currently values most highly. The paradox is that to gain the true world, you must abandon the illusion of this one.
That's a staggering mandate. And that leaves us with our final provocative thought for you to chew on. The sources state that the entire Earth and solar system are, in fact, the land of ultimate bliss, and everything we see is just a virtual image. If reality itself is illusory and temporary, why are the cosmological proofs, the pyramid dimensions, the Earth's orbital precision, the requirement for 3 semicircular canals presented with such absolute, almost scientific specificity?
Right.
What is this paradoxical focus on engineering precision within a virtual existence? Tell us about the nature of the ultimate design and why the designer wants us to notice the math.
We'll leave you with that puzzle. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.